Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Silverstein legal event, Legal Impact, Industry Issues Today and Tomorrow. I am super excited to be here with you guys today. My name is Dr. Chantel Tibbles. I'll be your host and the moderator for this event, and also, shockingly, the tech person. So throughout this event, if you have questions or comments or anything, please feel free to leave them in the chat, and we will address them as we move through the event. Today, we are talking about personal safety online and in real life. For members of the adult entertainment community, it's never been more important to know how to protect yourself online, as well as in your daily in-person life. During this discussion, we're going to unpack some practical guidance for keeping your private information safe from stalkers, trolls, and other dangerous people and entities, as well as what to do if you are targeted. So we have an amazing panel today with some fantastic thought leaders in the industry. So let's go through and meet our panel, starting with Executive Director of the FSC, Allison Bowden. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Allison.
Thank you, Chantal. So as you mentioned, I am the Executive Director of the Free Speech Coalition. If you're not familiar with us, we are the trade association of the adult industry, which means that we go to bat for porn and sex toys and all of the excellent things that everybody here does with government, media, crazy people who for some reason want to eradicate sex from the universe. We are there to defend what all of us do and to defend you personally as a member.
That's fantastic. I'm really glad you actually mentioned the novelty industry. We often don't overtly think about the FSC also including consideration of the novelty industry. So that's great to hear that. Next, let's move on to Jada Kai. Hi, Jada.
Hi, I'm Jada Kai, former Team USA figure skater. Now I do content creation. I did mainstream porn, and I also webcam.
Amazing. So it is thrilling. It is absolutely thrilling to all of us, Canadians and non-Canadians. I'm non-Canadian, Corey, Canadian, to know that you are a super high level athlete and ice skater. I don't know. It's just the coolest thing to think about on top of all of your other accomplishments. Thank you so much for being here, Jada.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the owner of Takedown Piracy, Nate Glass.
Hey everybody, I'm Nate Glass. I am the owner of Takedown Piracy, like Chantel said. We've been in business for about 13 years, and I've been in the adult industry for, I think, about 24, 25 years now. We started out dealing with most of the big name studios, protecting their content, but in the last couple of years, we've seen a shift towards the independent producers. So we started offering a service called Clip Century, which is for your indie producers, indie models. And that's probably what I'll be talking about mostly today.
Amazing. It's so good to have you here, Nate. And everybody loves to look at all of the stuff in your background, all of the murderous costumes, all of the characters. We love it.
A lot of Funko Pops.
There you go. And last but certainly not least, we have the man of the hour, the best attorney there is, the only person I know with his own Better Call Corey t-shirt, which I'm hoping he shows, Corey D. Silverstein. Corey, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about this series.
Thank you all so much for being here today. It's an absolute pleasure to be with this group. First, I have to thank the Free Speech Coalition and my good close friend, Allison Bowden, for sponsoring today's event. Allison, as for those of you who don't know, is still in her first year as the executive director of the Free Speech Coalition, but she is already doing an incredible job taking the FSC into some different directions that admittedly had needed some of her love and attention. So so thrilled that the FSC could take care of this, be our sponsor today. So thank you, Allison. And of course, thank you to our friends at the FSC. Jada, you are our first Olympic athlete to ever be on this this episode or this show. So congratulations. I'm not sure we ever will have another Olympic athlete on this show, but we're so happy you're here. Nate, my old friend, Nate and I go back to the time before time when porn was just being made on stone tablets. Can't thank you guys enough again, because the last few episodes that we've done have really, they've gone over great. We're going to keep going. We actually, Chantel, who is a massive part in helping out with today's topic, selected today's topic based on the feedback that we've been getting from people who have been watching these episodes. So please, like, whether you are here live today or whether you're watching this in a couple of days from now when we post it up on all the different tube channels and stuff like that, please keep the feedback coming. We absolutely love it. You can always, we'll share contact information later so you can get a hold of any of these people, but I want to thank you all for being here, especially all of you that are here in our audience today, because all of us as panelists, we were so thrilled and so happy to have all of you here today to listen to what comes out of our crazy mouths.
And on that note, let's get started. So, Allison, let's start with you. Thinking about the bigger picture of the industry, as well as the industry's intersection with wider society, what are some key unique issues people in our community face when attempting to protect their identities online and in person? And I don't just mean performers and content creators here. I mean everybody in our community. So people who work behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera.
She's muted.
There we go. Sorry, I still recovering from a recent bout of COVID, so I tried to mute to make sure I'm not coughing all over the video. So, you know, I have been part of the adult industry for almost 20 years, and you know, even though I have never been in front of the camera other than some really, really fun, I guess you'd call them extra spots, although I did play an FBI agent in one kink.com production. I have definitely had my own experiences and have known folks in various other behind the scenes roles who have faced everything from people following you down the street because you're wearing a hoodie with a logo they recognize on it, harassment from just random customers of the websites that they work for, the inevitable weirdness and unpleasantness that can come when your porn identity merges or overlaps in any way with your real life identity. I'm sure everybody has had some inappropriate Facebook suggestions in their lifetime. So, you know, I think that while we often think about performers as the only targets of this kind of harassment, I know that business people and regular old employees face this stuff too. So my message to you, whether you're a creator, I don't know, a video editor, somebody who does marketing, you're an affiliate, remember that you're not being paranoid by being careful. You don't necessarily have to, you know, adopt a witness protection program like approach to your life, but unfortunately there are a lot of nuts out there and people who don't like what we do. So it makes sense to protect yourself as much as you can. Things that I recommend, you know, making sure that you understand what your exposure is online already. What can people find out about you based on your legal name, any names you use in the course of your work? Google your phone number, Google your address, Google all that stuff. Use quotes, don't use quotes. Be sure to check the images tab because you might be surprised by how much information is out there about you. Make sure that if you have personal social profiles, maybe you make them private. An easy way to make sure that you're not accidentally sharing information on social that you don't want to is to view it as, you know, logged out or view it as someone else. A lot of the platforms have ways of doing that. And one of the creepiest things that I think most people get shocked by the first time they encounter them are these people search websites, where you type in somebody's name and then all of a sudden it's your last 5 addresses and, you know, 3 phone numbers that are associated with you and all of your relatives with misspelled names, plus some randos. Those things are really scary. And there are ways to request takedowns from all of those websites, and you absolutely should. There's a lot there. So what I would recommend anyone do is go to this website that I have on my little screen, freespeechcoalition.com/safety, for a giant list of resources. Everything I just mentioned, all the how-tos for doing all that stuff, all there.
There's so many things, and we often are thinking about how the adult industry is intersecting, I cannot talk today, intersecting with the sort of mainstream vanilla world. But I also want to push back a little bit, or push a little bit deeper in this topic, specifically with you, Allison, and ask about what do we do about sort of inter-industry harassment. So there's no HR department for porn. Sorry, whoopsie. There's probably not even a lot of HR departments within specific companies or entities. What can happen for people who have maybe more public exposure when somebody who is in a more private aspect of the industry is crossing some lines or anything like that? I'll let you fill in what I'm talking about here, but what can people do to take action to protect themselves, even just address the situation in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I think you actually might be surprised by how many HR departments there are in porn. So if you have one, go to them. They are your first resource for this kind of thing. They are going to know the laws and they are, I mean, they're going to have lawyers on speed dial. So start there. If you are having interactions that you don't like, that you can't, and you've tried pushing back and you've tried saying, hey, actually that's not cool, please don't call me, please don't touch me. You know, I think that's a situation most, at least women for the most part, have been in this business. And I absolutely encourage you to define your boundaries. I think that we all kind of worry a lot about being perceived as a bitch. But I'd rather be a bitch than deal with some asshole doing something that is not safe or legitimate or makes me feel comfortable. So I recommend that, be a bitch. I also, if you work for a company where you are not, you know, the chief executive, right? So there's someone above you, there's someone who you report to, talk to your boss. If it can be effective to have someone who is higher level than you deal with people who should not be approaching their employees that way. Otherwise, you know, industry allies can be helpful. If you are interacting with folks who you know that person, you can try to work through them if they're okay with it. If you're really having trouble, I would say reach out to someone like me at the FSC who can direct you to resources, especially if, you know, everybody's situation is different. So we can at least help you like work through, okay, here's what you might want to try.
Amazing. It is really important for people to know that the FSC is a resource, because I am somewhat surprised to think about the idea of lots of human resource departments, but maybe there are. But a lot of people are independent. And when you are an independent creator and you're negotiating for yourself, or you are moving around with a bunch of different companies, that might not be your experience. So to know that the FSC is out there as a resource and a space to go to is very important. Speaking about independent performers and just performer experiences in general, Jada, let's move on to you for a little bit. So obviously you have a unique perspective in general and on our panel here. What are some of the most serious issues and also some of the most obvious, commonplace, or everyday incidents that performers need to be looking out for? So there's the the wild bonkers issues, right? But then there's also the like, my mail carrier said something funny or things like that. So
Oh yeah.
on both ends of the spectrum, what are just some things that people should be mindful of?
I think as a content creator, you know, we're in time with social media. You're always posting, you're always like producing content in some shape or form. So I think it's, you always have to be mindful of what's in the background when you're filming. You're making sure that you're not getting street signs or you have anything out. Um, a while ago, I was seeing if I wanted to like do VR live webcamming, and that exposes your entire room. So a lot of things can be open, and I think it's really good to be conscious of like what may be going out there when you're getting stuff from your wish list on Amazon. You want to make sure that you're hiding your address before you like live stream it or things like that. I feel like I could have been more careful doing when I first started. I used to do a lot of like, hi, I'm live streaming right now. And it's like, you could tell exactly where I was. So for me, definitely, you know, protecting your content. I think now with iPhones, like a lot of times, your location can be embedded onto your videos and pictures. So you make sure you want to like encrypt it to where it's all hidden. I was not very aware of that before. And I also think that like for me, after a few years in the industry, I started doing collaborations, and I wished that I did like a Google search on some of the performers that I worked with beforehand. And I think it's also very important to see if you can find references before you work with performers. I think that would have really helped me as a model, like in the past.
That's so interesting because what you're saying right there, especially at the end, really kind of ties back to this idea of the HR department of porn, right? You kind of
Right.
have to be your own researcher, vetter, your own HR department in many ways, and definitely do your due diligence, even with community members. It's a fair point. So you, Corey likes to maybe you should clarify if you want exactly your ice skating qualifications and accolades, but you have a whole very high level, very public, I don't know, thing that you do in addition to your work in the space. And there's a lot of creators nowadays who do. There's a lot of people who are very high level Twitch streamers or who have different companies and different places where they're exploring and working. So does that present any unique challenges? Because I know people have very big goals and things like that. So when you're moving into like spreading your wings into different aspects of our world, what are some other issues that might come up that people should be mindful of?
Yeah, so I've never gone to the Olympics, but I was Philippine national champion and I was on Team USA. So that does mean that my legal name can cross paths with my performer name a lot. And that's, I think every performer should have like a game plan for if their real name leaks out and what to do when that happens, because I think it's better to be more prepared. I knew that like once I started doing webcam, there was a good chance people were going to find out what my legal name was. Before I even got into the adult industry when I was younger, I was just a figure skater at the time, and I was on a website called jailbait.com, and it had a countdown to my 18th birthday. So I already had like weird stalkers kind of like following me. And I think I was just always conscious of like, okay, I'm never going to like post my location unless I know I'm at a public event where there's good security there and whatnot. Right now, I feel like I do deal with people being like, oh, hi, and they're calling me by my legal name, and I try to like delete those tweets and whatnot. I mean, I know it's out there, but I don't want it to be, you know, fully accessible. So I just like do the best that I can. Most people are pretty respectful of that. Another thing that I've had to deal with, and I don't really know like the best way to handle it, but I've had companies in the past where they're like, oh, do you want to talk about your skating? And they will use my like skating pictures to advertise for, you know, the mainstream videos that I've been doing. So those I think are very like unique to having a like very public past to what I'm doing now.
So many of these things that you just said right now are alarming to me. The idea that when you were still a young person that there was probably a mainstream website out there doing that is stunning to me. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. And but it does raise a lot of issues with the boundary crossing. You need to be mindful of, you know, just you're saying mainstream companies using your pictures that should not be used to
Right.
advertise current content. That's absolutely inappropriate. And again, porn HR department, where are you? I need to ring the bell right now and report this incident, because that is a lot. So you've given us a lot to think about and a lot of tips anyway, but is there, you know, one thing maybe before we sort of change directions in a second, one thing that you, from your perspective as Jada, if you could go back to Jada a few years ago and say, this is the key piece of advice, what would your key piece of advice be?
Hire Corey.
Okay, yes, hire Corey.
Okay.
I think what Allison was talking about earlier, always like keeping tabs on yourself, Googling yourself, because I don't think that I would have known about, you know, these companies using my pictures from the past to advertise now. I would have known about that unless I Googled myself. So I think like checking in weekly, seeing what people are saying about you is very informative, and then reaching out to the resources. Like I didn't know that the FSC was there when I first started. And also like talking to other models, I think really helped me. And I think those things have helped me the most. And also Corey.
Amazing, so amazing. So since we clearly, he clearly wants to talk, and he clearly wants to talk, let's move on to Corey here for a second. Let's delve, your word, into so this is especially alarming and disconcerting, but it obviously does happen. Performers, content creators face stalking and harassment all the time. What are some legitimate legal options people facing these types of circumstances have? What are actual steps that people can take from a legal standpoint?
It's such a phenomenal question. And I actually, Chantel, to your chagrin, I was fine listening to Allison and Jada, because they speak so well, and every point they made was so valid. But let's start right from the beginning, okay? And this is the most important thing that every single one of you performers out there need to realize. You should never, ever accept being a victim. That is not acceptable. What I mean by that is that immediately a bully wants to make you feel like crap. Someone who's cyber stalking you, harassing you online, they want you to feel helpless. They want you to feel like you have nowhere to go to. And if they accomplish that goal, they have already won. Number one, Chantel, do not engage these people. When I say do not engage, when they want to directly communicate with you, block them every step of the way. Block their emails, report them, The second it comes in, if it comes in as a DM on Twitter or a message on Instagram or a message on another adult platform or whatever, number one, block and do not engage. This is one of the biggest mistakes actually that people make, because a lot of people think that, okay, you know, this guy's kind of, or girl or whoever is a little kooky, maybe I can talk some sense into them. No, you can't. There is no talking sense into them. Don't engage. When you engage, you are giving them exactly what they want. This is number one. Number two, do not be afraid of law enforcement ever. And I hear it all the time that sex workers in particular are afraid of law enforcement. I have a case going on right now where we are working with law enforcement to go after one of these predators who's been torturing a performer online. And we're working side by side with this sex worker, with law enforcement, with me as an attorney to hold this individual accountable for what he's done. Do not be afraid of law enforcement. Now, you might have reasons why you're timid of law enforcement, because maybe you've had negative experiences. Maybe law enforcement has discriminated against you for your role as being a sex worker. And if that's the case, slow down, call me, call an attorney first. You don't necessarily have to go through. If you have concerns about going to law enforcement, you can actually, you can hire a private attorney to reach out to law enforcement for you, make initial contact and express your concerns, and also make sure that you're going to be taken seriously by law enforcement. This is a major thing that people don't seem to think, that, you know, they don't think about at the time, because again, they get into this position of fear, Chantel. They get into this situation where the bully, the cyber stalker, they want you to feel helpless. That's the entire process. That's their entire mindset. Unacceptable. Next thing, civil options, okay? A lot of you who are here today listening live, and a lot of you who are online are based in the US, Canada, and all across the world. In the US, we have things called restraining orders. Restraining orders is not the enemy. Again, the case I was referring to a minute ago, in this case, my client has already obtained a restraining order against this person. The judge signed off on numerous restrictions against the person, including using a computer to continue the acts that this person was committing. There are various state laws also that have now come into effect that a lot of people aren't aware of. Different states have different laws that protect people specifically from cyberbullying, cyber stalking, etc. Do not be afraid to engage a lawyer to find out what those laws are in your specific jurisdiction. They're going to be different from state to state, guys. I'm not going to, not going to tell you that all 50 states in the US all get along, because guess what? They don't. And a lot of them have their own, very differences in what their laws should be, but they're there, they're on the books. And if you don't know what they are, then you're already putting yourself at a substantial loss. These people, when they come to you, okay, you're a professional, I don't know if we want to call it social media engineer, social media influencer, whatever. That's what you guys all here that are watching, that's what you guys do. These people that are out there are professionals too. They are literally, their own focus is to try to create misery for you. And immediately, always think this over, is remember, blocking, and another thing, not engaging, and don't take your issue to social media. This is another thing that I've seen people do. They think that by calling out this cyber stalker, they won't engage them directly, but they say, okay, well, hey, to all of my Facebook friends or Twitter friends or whatever, start bombarding this particular person's email because he's harassing me. That is the wrong approach to do it. From a psychological perspective, you are giving this person that is harassing you exactly what they want. You are giving them the attention. You are giving them the reassurance that they've gotten under your skin. Don't do that. It actually even makes it worse. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from my good friend, Nate Glass from Takedown Piracy, and Nate's going to tell you all about how piracy can spread like wildfire in the event when you start bringing attention to yourself and you start calling these people out, because what they're going to do is they're going to look out for anything they can find on you. They're going to repost it. Well, Nate will talk about that in a few minutes. It's a little bit beyond my level of expertise. But ultimately, what Chantel, people have to realize, and this is one of these things that is just forgotten so many times, is, people want to crawl up into that ball and they want to disappear, and they don't want to respond. They want to just hide from it all, and they think that they can hide it from it all. Yes, it's completely understandable that you're feeling violated, that you're feeling bullied, that you're feeling harassed. And so those feelings are completely natural. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with you for feeling that way. But as I started, Chantel, from your original question, is don't be a victim, because you don't have to be. What you don't want to do is use the wrong tools to fight off this sort of cyberbullying, because you might think that you're making it better, but you could inadvertently make it worse. And right at first, when the situation first evolves, is actually when you're most vulnerable, because it's at that time when your emotions are pumping, the adrenaline is pumping, and you're not thinking as clearly as you could be. And this is a very dangerous time for victims, because this is when victims make mistakes. They start saying things to these people like, what is it going to take to make you go away? Biggest mistake you can make, again, is because, again, you're now validating the behavior and you're saying, guess what? You've already won. You got under my skin.
I think Eve raised that a couple scrolls back, that oftentimes that is one thing that people want in these circumstances, is someone's reaction. And so if you react, I mean, obviously reacting behind the scenes, scary, reacting is natural, but giving them that reaction or letting them see that you're having a reaction is oftentimes kind of playing into exactly what they want to. I've read and heard that as well. So Corey, you just went at length and talked about some things to do after a situation has begun. Is there stuff that people can do more than the obvious, but like, are there steps people can take to kind of proactively prevent these kinds of things, or is it just something that you have to kind of deal with when it comes up?
Look, the fact is that we live in a digital world now where, anyone can communicate with anyone and anyone can share information on the internet. But there are things that, if you're going to get into this industry, a couple things that I always highly recommend. Number one, I would tell you that the people in this industry are actually some of the most wonderful, caring people that I've ever met. I've known these people. I've known Jada for a long time. I've known Allison. I've known all of you for a long time. Even some of you that are here live watching. I've known Colin since the beginning of time. But the point that I'm making is that, number one, find someone in the industry that you can reach out to and talk to before you dive in. You don't have to dive in on day one and on day one put up 27 clips of yourself and do whatever. Example, just to tie in Takedown Piracy and Nate Glass here for a second, a lot of the work that they can do is they can actually help you before the problem really starts in protecting your the content that you're putting online. Talk to industry veterans, because you'll actually find that when you reach out to people like Allison, myself, Nate, Jada, we want to talk to you. We actually want to be in a position where we don't want to see harm your way. So talk to us beforehand. Number two, one of the things that I see all the time, there are ways, my friends, that you can start up legal business entities in certain jurisdictions in this country that will assist you in protecting yourself, especially when you want to, receive payments from different platforms. Do you want those payments to go to you specifically in your own name, or would you rather that it go to a business that when you go to that state's website and you try to search for that business, the only thing they're going to find is basically walls? There are options there. There are things to consider, Chantel, that people can consider. I'm not saying that you absolutely, hey, do this or you're fucked. I'm not going to say that, because, that may not be the case. What I am saying is that there are valuable tools out there in terms of entity legal structures that I can help people, or another lawyer can help you create, to create a little bit of that bridge between you and your personal safety. Some of the other things that I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know. Getting a little feedback.
Something's happening with your audio.
Corey broke it.
Can I
Broke it.
hear
So
myself?
let's take that as a segue moment, because you brought up Nate here multiple times, and we all know that Nate is a legend in my mind, at least, and probably everybody else's. But let's really take that concept you raised, Corey, about how piracy can be used as a stalking and harassment. I hate to use the word tool, but tactic. And think about that. And then also, Nate, can you talk a bit about how that works, and then how content piracy and dissemination of content illegally online, like how that has changed as the industry production models have changed in recent years, and anything.
Yeah.
Let's hear from you.
Yeah, so we've seen this content piracy used as, like you said, another tool to get under a performer's skin. And I'll give you a pretty extreme example. We had a content producer come to us a month or so ago, and they were like, you could tell this was very distressing to them, because not only was their OnlyFans content being pirated, but if you watched the video that this pirate had uploaded, at the end of the scene was like a stalker 101 manifesto of, here's what this girl looked, because she normally doesn't show her face on camera, and it was like they've tried to take screenshots where you could try to almost kind of see her face. So they posted that in there. They took pictures that she had posted on her, I think, Instagram, and it was of certain landmarks. And they said, I Google image search this building, and they had basically narrowed it down to what city that she had lived in. They found pictures of her children, and this was all tacked on to the end of her stolen content video. So it's just another tool that pirates can use. And I think what those guys wanted was they wanted her to reach out and say, stop it, or whatever, because like Corey said, like Jada said, like Allison said, like you both said, that's what these guys want. They want that interaction. And to kind of parrot what Corey said, even if you do go get all of your buddies on social media to blow these guys up, for a lot of performers, all you've done is they're now interacting with other performers. So from a stalker's point of view, that's probably like their wet dream, like now I'm not only just dealing with one performer, now I'm dealing with a bunch of them. Yep. So it can be very dangerous bringing those other people in, like Corey said. And what the role that I think we play that's so valuable is that we can kind of be that middleman between you and that stalker. And we take it very just matter-of-factly. We're not sending them an email in all caps with a bunch of whatever, because that's, like Corey said, you're just feeding the troll. So we do it very matter-of-factly. This is their copyrighted content, take it down. If they don't take it down, they know we're going to go to their hosting provider. We're going to go to however that site is monetizing that content. We're going to hit that site in Google so that they lose traffic. And we just use all the legal available tools without feeding it. I can tell you, I get so many emails from pissed off pirates who are just call me every name in the book. Or I love the ones where it's like, how am I supposed to know something's copyrighted? Like as if, you didn't make it, so obviously it's not yours, but whatever. But we do not interact with those guys because it's just feeding it, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really accomplish anything. And to what Chantal said, it's so much more difficult now for the individual performers. While it was great back in the day, you had all the studios, and you probably didn't have to deal with this because you didn't have social media and all those things. Now you're kind of on your own, and that has a lot of great benefits, but that also comes with a lot of responsibility. So you don't have a studio or whatever, taking all that incoming for you. Now you've got to be proactive. And so, like Corey said, either setting yourself up as an LLC or incorporating or whatever that looks like, so that you put that barrier between your name being out there and just a company that has a PO box somewhere. One of the craziest, we had a performer come to us a couple months ago, and she was like, I want to get my content protected, but she's also worried because her real name was getting out there, and she was like, I've been really protective about not having my real name on anything, so it's really baffling to me how they got my real name. So I said, okay, we'll do our normal stuff. We'll look for your pirated content, but we'll also do some searches for your real name and see what's coming up. And the top result that we got for her real name was a DMCA notice sent by her previous DMCA company, who was sending notices out
In her
under
name.
performer's real legal name. And we're like, I mean, it's tragic because it's like you went to somebody to get help and they ended up screwing you over. But we told them, like, you don't have to do this. I don't even want to know people's real names. I don't care. Like, we're sending it out under your performer name. We have had pirates hit us back and say, we need to know this person's real name. We need a copy of her ID. And I'm like, bullshit. No, you don't. The law doesn't say that you need that. So you need to comply because I've given you everything you need. So if you were an individual performer and you maybe didn't know better, you might have agreed to that guy's request to give him a copy of your ID. And then you're just, you're opening yourself up for a lot of headaches. So using someone like us, using someone like Corey, the FSC as a great resource, you can kind of put like a barrier between you. And there's a lot of tools that we have that kind of come along with the playing field of working in anti-piracy. One of the things Allison talked about were these white pages type websites where, every address you've ever lived in. And those places do, for the most part, have where you can request removals. It sucks that those places exist, but they're basically just, hoovering up all of this public information and, collating it and put it in one place. Most of those places have removal options. If you're a client of ours, it is something like we'll go out, we'll do that for you if we have to. But then also the problem that a lot of people get into is that result still showing up in Google, and you'll still have enough of the snippet from the result that someone could still get a lot of information from it. But we have a special tool that Google has given us to where we can get that page delisted from Google. So it's another nice little, benefit that you get, through working with us. So
Chantal, is my sound better now? Yeah, it's better now. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I want to
Yes,
show something that Nate just said that I want to jump on, because Nate said something that is so key, and there's something essential there. A lot of you who are getting into the business do something where you split up your social media profiles, and you have your adult social media profile, and then you have your mainstream social media profile. This is going to sound harsh, and a lot of you may not like this, but what I am recommending to you is, if you are going to be a performer, I would actually kill off all of your mainstream social media profiles. These particular pirates, these nuisance people, they are so good at sleuthing. And Nate gave a great example earlier of, again, someone who's able to use, the different technologies and, use different algorithms to find it. People make mistakes. Someone posts something on this main. I would tell you, I know it sucks to give up your, your personal social media page, but one of my recommendations, Chantal, that, like, to the question you asked earlier, get rid of your personal social media, personal social media.
So listening to all of these conversations, there's a lot of threads connecting everybody's points. Being vigilant, thinking about how the industry, everyone always talks about, oh, the industry has changed. The industry has changed dramatically in the last 5 years, and the production and the ownership of content, and that has shifted. That is very, very important to be mindful. It's also very important to be mindful of the fact that nothing, you can always step it back, right? So as Nate was saying, that person who was getting her DMCA sent out there under her legal name, it's like, what's the best way to get out of a hole? Stop digging, right? And so you can pull that back, and maybe there's that place, but maybe the damage can be undone. So we have to think kind of three-dimensionally and strategically about this issue, as we are currently working in a very dynamic industry and space. Before we keep going, though, I know that Allison had a comment she wanted to bring up back there when Nate was speaking.
Yeah, thanks, Chantal. Jada actually brought up a really important point that I want to tie in to everyone, which is, assume this is going to happen to you. Have a plan ahead of time. I know that that's the way to go, because when I didn't have a plan ahead of time and I had a social media impersonator, I just freaked out and called Nate. And of course, Nate took great care of me. And one of the really important parts of that experience that I learned was when someone is doing something like this, you need to document it as much as humanly possible, because you have to know and be able to show that they like the things they've done. Screenshot messages, just keep them for yourself. If you're going to go to law enforcement, and maybe Corey goes with you, he's going to want to have transcripts of messages they've sent, screenshots showing the proof that this is happening, and that will really improve your chances of, you know, getting a resolution and getting these people, you know, if not to back off of their own accord, but maybe to be forced to back off.
Yeah, and if you're someone who runs like Dropbox on your computer, you can usually just hit print screen, and that will take a screenshot of your whole screen. So if they're sending you something, if you're not sure how to do a screenshot, you can do it doesn't have to be, you know, perfectly manicured screenshot. You hit print screen, it automatically saves a screenshot to your Dropbox. If you're on your phone, you know, you hit the two buttons on the side, you take a screenshot. And it's important, like Allison says, to do that before, because if you do come to us and you want us to take something down, that's what we're going to do. But in doing that, we might be taking away whatever evidence that you might have had. So like, be proactive and do that before.
That's a really interesting thing to think about in terms of having a plan. Yeah, Jada?
Something that I didn't bring up that came to mind was very recently, I feel like I've seen a lot of models having their OnlyFans accounts being hacked and their social media accounts being hacked and like just completely disappearing. So, I mean, this might be a given, but I would recommend setting up like two-step verification, because I thankfully have had mine set up with that. But I've gotten emails where it's like, oh, are you trying to sign in from Indiana today? Like, no, but that's like so scary to, you know, completely lose everything. They can probably get into your banking accounts or whatever, if they have your OnlyFans. So I definitely would recommend that if you guys don't already.
There's also a total kind of subculture that does this amongst these degenerate crowds, where this is like an achievement for them, and they'll call it wins. They'll call it wins, like I got wins on this girl or whatever, and they'll post screenshots showing. We had a girl who came to us a month or so ago who had her Snapchat hacked into, all these pictures, you know, stuff that she was not a professional performer. This was like a civilian. And when I found the sites that had posted her pictures, there were also pictures where they had taken screenshots showing that they were in the settings of her Snapchat. So it was a way for that person to prove, because they have to prove to the other degenerates that they hacked into your social media. So and then they get a lot of whatever likes from their other degenerates. So like, that's an achievement for them. So the more, like Jada says, the more you can do two-factor authentication and all that stuff,
Yeah,
the more you're going to keep them out.
and also with so many new apps coming out, there are always privacy settings. So when I signed up for Telegram, I had no idea that, oh, everyone in your phone book is going to know that you signed up as Jada Kai on Telegram. So every time you download a new app, I would recommend to go into those settings, make sure you have your phone number hidden, you know what name is on there, and just like be mindful of that.
I often hear people recommending two phones.
Yes.
What are thoughts on two phones? Work phone and like, non-work phone. Is that as useful as it sounds, or like, what do you guys think?
I keep recommending to all my clients, there's different apps actually that you can get now. You don't necessarily, a lot of people, when you say get a second phone, they actually, like, you literally picture them like sitting there holding like two phones in their head and stuff. But
that's what I think of.
No, there's actually pretty solid apps. There's apps like Burner, for example. Burner's a real solid one that, literally with a tap of a button, you can completely eliminate a phone number from existence once you're done with it. There are some really good, again, apps. I mean, look, if you truly are trying to, stay off the grid with your other phone, you can always go to a Walmart, get yourself a pay cash for a pay by the minute phone and dump it when you're done with it. But some of the apps that do exist now, again, like Burner and there's some other ones that are actually pretty good apps. And you should never though be using your personal phone number. So if you have a phone number that you use to communicate with your family, your mom, dad, kids, whoever, that number should never be distributed anywhere online. And the other thing I tell people, and this is like another tricky one too, when I was younger, I mean, I don't want to sound too old here, but when I was younger, we had house phones, and a cell phone was like the emergency phone. But ultimately, when people wanted to call you and you talk to your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or when Allison and I were trying to communicate with each other, we picked up our old phones, and
even my boyfriend in Canada.
Yeah, that guy. We weren't worried about him. So, but this is what you do. So you pick up your old school phones. One thing you got to remember though now is that when you tie your cell phone number to your utility bills, which a lot of people do, this is a trap. So remember that a lot of those utilities have the right to make that public sharing information because the utility companies belong to the states. So if you have your electric bill or your cable bill or whatever, and you put that account under your personal cell phone number, you are actually putting yourself at risk that is ultimately going to be publicly shared information. Have a separate number for that stuff. I actually have a separate number that I use for my bills and stuff like that, so that I can still protect my cell phone number somewhat. So just something to think about there.
So many things. For those of you who haven't been looking in the chat, Allison and also Beth are putting some good information and some good links there too. So that is something to consider. So we're getting close to the hour and we're close to about out of time, but I just wanted to ask our panelists one last time, big takeaway. What is a big takeaway from this conversation? Something that, you want to make sure that listeners, people who are watching later, really kind of come away with this from you. And maybe we can start with you, Allison, since you kicked us off at the beginning.
Thanks. I think that the big thing is how much information this panel has shared that is so valuable, and it's probably overwhelming, and you're not going to remember all of it. So the thing that I would encourage everyone to do is go to the website that I put up that has the resources at freespeechcoalition.com/safety. And it's covers a lot of what we've already discussed here today, how to do all of this stuff, how to get a burner phone, whether it's an app or a real one, how to get your name delisted from these people search websites. A lot of really good resources, and I'm going to be adding to them after this chat.
Amazing. Jada, what would you like people to come away from this knowing?
What Corey brought up, like not feeding the trolls, I think is really important. I personally get caught up by that stuff sometimes, and knowing that it's okay to block someone. For me, I would be like, what's the point of blocking them when they're just going to make a new account and then start over? But I think it does slow them down a little bit. It gives you time to kind of regroup yourself and figure out what your next move is going to be. I also feel like that I was intimidated to use DMC takedowns in the past, because I've heard from other models no, if you go to a DMCA company where they take down your content, the people reaching out to them are going to reach out to them with your legal name. And I was like, that's the last person I would go to. So that was very useful for me. I definitely learned a lot from that. And I hopefully other models in here feel the same way as I do. And hopefully they feel like they learned a lot as well.
Amazing. Amazing. Nate, I saw you making some pointing gestures over there. What would you like people to come away with?
I was just saying to Jada's point, like we don't do that. So hit us up, Jada. I mean, we'll definitely help you out. Reba, who works with me, is also my fiance. We call her Mama Rocket because she takes a very, she wants to look out for performers. And I've literally heard her sitting there talking on the phone while a performer is crying and she's comforting them, talking them through it and stuff. So definitely hit us up. Yeah, your DMCA company is supposed to be helping you, not making your life worse. So definitely hit us up. And for performers out there, what I would say is it's great. You get to be an independent model. You get to control your destiny, and that is awesome. But you got to have some responsibility in that. So you got to think ahead of time. You got to plan things out. You got to be smart. You've got amazing resources between the FSC and Corey and Chantel and other performers like Jada. I mean, the resources are definitely out there. The people in the chat, Eve is amazing. Reach out to those people because chances are they've been down this road before. They know other people that have been down this road, and they generally, for all the knocks that the industry get, they're like, I think Corey said at the beginning, there are some really great people who want to help you.
Amazing. Corey, what would you like everybody to come away from this meeting with?
Well, the first thing is that before we started today's meeting, Jada challenged me to a skating contest. And since I skate every Thursday morning and still play hockey every Thursday morning, and Jada still skates, Jada and I have decided that we're going to actually challenge each other in Vegas. So if you're at the trade shows in Vegas and you come out to watch Jada and I in some sort of strange skating competition, which will happen, I might even come up with some sort of weird donation for a charity, maybe the FSC or something like that. But that'll be in January, so you can watch Jada and I make asses of ourselves, or me make an ass of myself, and Jada skate rounds. But what I want people to always realize, and this is, to answer your question, Chantel, is that you are never a victim, and you don't have to be a victim. And this is where you allow the bullies to win, because the second these cyber stalkers, these trolls, the second that that you start, wanting to curl up into that ball and hiding and going away, you are giving them exactly what they want. Don't give them that satisfaction. Like Nate said a few minutes ago, there are options out there. And I can assure you that there's plenty of legal options that we could do. And sometimes it sucks, guys. Look, going to lawyers isn't fun. Nobody likes paying retainers. Nobody likes paying legal bills. I understand that. Hell, I'm a lawyer and I hate lawyers. Look at that. But the fact is that we're here for a purpose and we can't help you. Whether it's me or whether it's someone else, we have the resources that we can actually utilize to get you the tools that you need to help you. So don't just sit there and don't just think you don't have options, because you do. The only other thing, Chantel, I'd really like to do is I just on a personal level, I'd like to thank all of you, my my panelists who showed up here today, and you, Chantel, of course, for being the greatest moderator in the history of the world. But there's a very special place in my heart for the speakers that are here today. Nate and I go back a very long time, and Allison is, for those of you who've ever seen me and Allison debate anything, we actually have a lot of fun, and it can be pretty scary when she starts hitting me, but it's all right. Jada is one of my absolute favorite performers, and she's one of my favorite performers because she fears nothing. And that's the sort of attitude, if you're a performer in this business, you don't fear anybody, because ultimately she's a master at her craft, and that's what you should be focusing on. So I just want to thank the four of you for taking the time and being part of this seminar, and thank you to our audience as well, because if you guys weren't here, we wouldn't be doing this. So that's all.
Thank you,
thank you,
everybody, for joining
everyone.
us for yet another legal impact seminar brought to you by Silverstein Legal. This was a great discussion. We do these quarterly. They are fantastic, super informative, great topics. And yeah, I'm Dr. Chantel Tibbles, and I will see you guys next time.